Kirby and the Forgotten Land is coming out in March, and we already know so much about the game. For instance, we know that there's some ferocious beast pack that are apparently taking Waddle Dees and other creatures away and putting them in cages and keeping them hostage, and Kirby has to go save the day, probably saving Meta Knight, King Dedede, and all of his friends from the past. But I guess an even bigger question is, where does this game even take place? So in the very beginning of the new trailer, we see Kirby on a warp star in a pre-rendered cutscene with familiar clouds, hills, and grassy backgrounds and textures that we've seen before. Kirby is clearly in Dreamland here, and you can even see different star blocks and familiar areas we have seen in past games. So where in the world does Kirby get into this new world, or like exactly where does this game even take place? Well, we have a couple more pictures that might explain the story a little bit better. Kirby is standing here on this path, kind of looking up as if he's seeing something in the sky. This has to be when Kirby decides to get on his warp star and head into the sky, as he does in this frame, and you can see this dark cloud storm appearing, and Kirby goes to fly into it. And then we get this scene, Kirby seeming to fall into some type of star-shaped hole in the clouds, which probably warps him into this new world. And this is the storm probably taking different residents from Dreamland, and somehow Kirby is able to escape once he lands in this new world. This is then probably why we see Kirby kind of knocked out on the beach, and this is where he landed after warping into this new world. And this world looks nothing like anything we've seen from Kirby games before. This is a completely new area and some new place, but exactly what is it? Well, it seems like this whole game might just take place on this one island. As you can see far out, that is nothing but water and maybe some distant islands that may not even be part of the game. So if this game all takes place on one giant island, what if I told you this could be the remnants of Earth in the future, and Kirby could be on one of the last continents still up? What if I told you we've actually seen this before? In Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, we've actually seen a planet, which was level 5 of the game, called Shiver Star. And if you look at this planet, it is 100% a callback to our own Earth. As you can see, it even has the moon right above it. And if you look closely, you can even see continents kind of grayed out by whatever destruction or snow or ice that's all over the globe. Shiver Star also has similar locations that we've kind of seen so far from Kirby and the Forgotten Land. For instance, it has a whole level dedicated to a shopping mall with escalators and everything. There's even different floors that Kirby can get to and enemies surrounding all over this mall, and of course it looks abandoned. Now, once again, this is a Nintendo 64 game, so not everything's going to be as detailed and perfect as what we see in today's gaming world. And this time, we see once again another mall here in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and it's very detailed, but once again, very much in ruins. Another location in the game is a factory. Now, we don't really get to see many factories at all so far in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but there's lots of buildings that could very well be factories. I mean, once again, this does look like it's a destroyed, past civilization, and Nintendo even confirms that a civilization once lived and thrived here. So I would not put it past Nintendo to definitely have some type of factory world or level in this game, and we just have not gotten there yet or seen it. After all, we have only seen about 3 or 4 different worlds, and there's sure to be at least 8 or 9 different ones based on past Kirby games. The last location we see is a boss fight with this giant robot that's still alive from this futuristic city, I guess, that the humans left behind. If you look at the background of the city, it's at night, so it's hard to tell everything that's going on, but it is a full futuristic city, and we get to see, once again, cities in this game as well, as it's one of the first earlier on levels as soon as you start the game, which could be the very same city. Now, one thing you might bring up is, yeah, of course, it's called Shiver Star. Look at everything, it's covered in snow and ice. Why isn't everything covered in snow and ice in Kirby and the Forgotten Land? Well, if we're going anything based off of timeline here, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is way later on in the future after Kirby and the Crystal Shards. Plus, some of the levels, and as you progress further and further into Shiver Star, the snow starts to melt, and as you get to the city, there's no snow whatsoever. Whatever happened to Earth, if this is Earth, to cover it in snow and ice, probably melted all by now, or at least only left a small region, which we do know we have a snow region left. So we very well could be seeing Shiver Star, or Earth, after it finally thawed out, and now life is starting to thrive on it once again. But trust me, we are literally just getting started, because there's even more evidence to convince you guys if you aren't convinced already, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg. pun intended. But first I want to thank today's sponsor, NYXI, for sending me their brand new style Joy-Con controller for the Nintendo Switch. This version of the Joy-Con gives you a better controller grip than what we have from Nintendo. If you've ever played with a Joy-Con, it's kind of uncomfortable to play for a long amount of time in handheld, where this gives you more of a classic controller feel when you're on the go. These Joy-Con have everything that you need and more, such as built-in rumble, and they're extremely light and easy to put on and take off. They also have paddle buttons on the back if you would like to map it. And there's also 2 light function buttons where you can change the color or even the way the colors move by making it animated. They can even be used separate from the Switch just like you can regular Joy-Con, and it even comes with a nice handy dandy charging cable and Joy-Con rail. And it even has the side buttons if you want to play on its side for some reason. So feel free to check out the Joy-Con in the description down below. You can even get a discount code if you click on the link in the description, where you can get $8 off your purchase of your Joy-Con. And thank you again to NYXI. Now for a second, I want to talk about dimensional rifts. They appear in many Kirby games as either a boss's attack, a boss coming in, Kirby being warped somewhere else, or some type of introduction for a boss. It's always been appearing, and it's been appearing in at least 4 or 5 past games, and they all just kind of look the same. They're in this star-shaped wormhole where things come through or be sucked in. Dimensional rifts are just that. They're rifts that pull things from other dimensions, and they can take you to another dimension or world. We've seen the Sphere Doomers use this to bring Kirby to their dimension, and we also see Star Dream, the giant machine, use this in order to warp in Galactonite. And some enemies powerful enough like Highness and Magolor use this as part of their attacks. So this shows me that only super powerful creatures can open these gateways and pathways to other dimensions, as they take a lot of power to do so, and we normally see them when the boss is at their final phase. Once again, the point I'm getting at is we see Kirby fall through another one of these star-shaped holes, which is probably another dimensional rift, which we know can take Kirby somewhere completely different. It could take him to a whole nother dimension or a completely other world. Now, I wouldn't bring this up unless there was more emphasis in the game. It looks like this game kind of goes off of this star thing a lot more. As you look at almost every single level in the overworld map, dimensional stars above it, and some of the areas don't have anything on them yet, which makes me wonder if Kirby has to unlock these, and these dimensional stars kind of bring these levels into this world. Maybe this world never had these levels, and maybe it's kind of warping them in or something from somewhere else. I don't really know. This is very hard to say right now without playing the game, but it does look like that maybe these cities and buildings are coming in from somewhere else, and what if they were coming in from Shiverstar? There's even a scene where we can see a kind of similar symbol on this garage door, and maybe it's just a way to break it, but it looks a little too suspicious to me. Now, it is hard to say that these dimensional rifts are any type related to Shiverstar from Kirby 64, as those were not even in this game at all, I don't believe. So, what else would it kind of back this theory up a little bit more? Well, I got one more thing that kind of makes sense, especially considering the fact that if Shiverstar is melting, it would explain the main antagonists and bad guys of this game. The main villains of this game is known as the Ferocious Beast Pack, and besides the Tropical Woods, which is another Wispy Woods character, almost every single boss that we've seen is some type of animal, and so are the new enemies. They're all like little dogs or little foxes running around, and the main antagonist so far seems to be lots of big animals. Like we see the giant strong armored beast Gorimondo, which is a giant gorilla. We then see some type of creepy kangaroo armadillo style character with its tongue all hanging out, but it clearly seems to be an animal with its mouth, its tooth, its claws, and its fur. This is definitely some type of, once again, part of the Ferocious Beast Pack. And of course, not to forget, probably the main antagonist of the game, whatever this giant lion is with the crown on his head. And of course, look what's carrying it. Some crows, more animals that results in the Ferocious Beast Pack. Why is this the main antagonist? Why are these animals against Kirby? Where are these animals from? Who are these animals? Well, this could also explain the fact that this could be Shiverstar, as they're all animals that seem very familiar to us, like gorillas, kangaroos, stuff that we've seen in our world. And of course, that giant lion. And it makes me think, what if these are animals that have survived on Shiverstar and kind of mutated into these creepy looking versions of themselves? And since all the ice and snow melted, they're finally free to roam about and found a way to warp in other creatures from other worlds somehow. That's the one part I still don't understand, how a gorilla, a lion, and a kangaroo were able to warp in all these characters from other worlds. I mean, let's even take a look at Kirby's new buddy, Elfilin, which seems to be some type of butterfly mouse creature hybrid, and maybe it's some type of animal mutation over the years at Shiverstar, which would now obviously be Earth in the future. Most of the Kirby enemies that we've seen in the past, I'm not going to say all of them, there has been some that have been related to animals that we see in nowadays, but for the most part, it looks like this entire game is based off of animals that presumably come from Earth. So what if this is in fact Earth in the future? From the locations that we've seen in this game, like an oil rig that seems to be owned by some type of company, as we can see lots of construction and, blocked off areas, and of course, amusement parks and even a little movie theater, this seems to be the location of a past civilization, and this very well could be the civilization that lived on Shiverstar, or Earth. If that's the case, I'm begging that we can get some callbacks and then some actual information about exactly what happened to Earth in the first place. So what do you guys think? Could this actually be Shiverstar that we're at? Or could this be like the future version of whatever Earth is? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you guys have found any more evidence supporting this, feel free to also let me know. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Kirby and Nintendo in general. And I'll see you all on the next one. See ya, guys.